Hi, this is Mrs. Kidman, and in this video, we're going to be discussing polynomial functions and what they kind of look like. So let's start by talking about what is a polynomial function. Well, let's break down the word polynomial here. Poly means many. Nom, meal, means number. Function is a function. So what this really means is we have a many number or multiple number function. So a polynomial is typically broken down into some sort of form like this. F of x equals a of n times x of n plus a of n minus 1, x of n minus 1, a of n minus 2, x of n minus 2, all the way to a sub 2, x squared, a sub 1, x, a sub 0. Now, this is really important because this appears in standard form. So what standard form means is that we go from highest to lowest exponent. And you can kind of see that's what this is doing here. Now, this is a very general term where n is our highest exponent, and every number after that is going to be less and less than that. And then what happens is we organize it that way, and then we can figure out other things. Now, a coefficient is an example of these numbers that are in front of our x's here, and that's just the number in front of our variable. And basically what that number in front of the variable tells us is how many of that variable do I have. And so these coefficients are specifically linked to that number. So it can't change unless it's combined with something else that's of that same exponent. And so it's telling us how many of that variable in that exponent we have. So a sub n can be any number, positive or negative, that we want it to be. It can be both a rational number or an irrational number, meaning it can be a fraction, a decimal, an integer, whatever we want it to be. By golly, it can even be pi if we want it to be pi. And so that coefficient is just the number in front. So it's telling us how many of that do I have. I have 3x squareds. I have 17x to the fifths, whatever it is. Now, our leading coefficient is a specific type of coefficient, and it is the number in front of the highest exponent. Now, when we talk about the highest exponent, that means the one that would be the furthest right on a number line, or the most positive number. So sometimes our highest exponent might be a 1, in which case we would see something like 3x. And so this 3 would be our leading coefficient. Sometimes we're going to see something like 3x to the fifth minus 7x squared. Because this x to the fifth is the highest exponent, the 3 would be that leading coefficient. It's whatever number's in front of that leading coefficient. Now, the very last thing here that's important when it comes to polynomials is we talk about them in terms of their degree. And the degree is another way of saying their highest exponent. Now, based on the degree, we actually call polynomials different names, and we're going to address that in the next video. But for this case, we just want to talk about these important functions of polynomials, these important characteristics. So when they're written in standard form, what our coefficients are, what the leading coefficients are, and what the degree is. So let's take a look at some of these examples here. First, we want to determine, are these written in standard form? Well, let's look at this first one. Okay, so does it go from highest exponent to lowest exponent? Yes, so that one's in standard form. What about this next one? It goes 4. Oh, what number is in front of it? What number goes with this exponent here? That's right, it's a 1. So this goes 4, 1, 2. Is that written in order from highest to lowest? No. So let's rewrite it down below. We've got 12x to the fourth plus, now we're going to put this 6x squared next to it, and then plus 4x. Fantastic. Now let's take a look at this last one here and ask ourselves, is this in standard form? So does it go from highest exponent to lowest exponent? Well, I see 2, 3, 4. Now this goes from lowest to highest, but remember, standard form is always going to be highest to lowest. So that means we need to rewrite this polynomial from highest to lowest exponent. So we're going to start with this negative 4x squared. Notice how the sign comes right along with it. And then plus our 7x cubed plus 6x squared. Okay, now we want to address what is the degree and leading coefficient of this polynomial. So our degree, remember, is the highest exponent. And so what's our highest exponent of this first one? That's right, it's 2. So we've got a degree of 2 for this first one. We've got a degree of 4 for this next one. And this last one, our highest degree, oh, there is a typo here. This should not be an x squared, but should be an x to the fourth. because our highest degree or highest exponent is a 4. Okay, then very last, we have our leading coefficient. And remember that leading coefficient is the very first number of our polynomial, or the number that comes in front of the one with the highest exponent. So what number comes in front of the one with the highest exponent in our first example here? Well, that leading coefficient, I'm going to abbreviate it with LC, is going to be a 3. On the second one, our leading coefficient is going to be in front of that x to the 4th, which is 12. And on our last one, our leading coefficient is also in front of our x to the 4th, but in this case, it's a -4. Notice the leading coefficient doesn't have to be the biggest coefficient. It just has to be the coefficient in front of the one with the highest exponent. And that's kind of how we decide what some of those characteristics are. Please check out the next video in which we'll talk about some really common types of polynomials, what they look like, and some of their specific characteristics.